more 5-minute idea, and we'll see how it goes. When I look at a histogram of results in order to make evidence-based judgments about a system, there are 3 things that I look for. When Gabriel, who teaches the 4X system here, asked me to look at his system and what could I suggest, I said, well, show me your histogram. Show me the Carfax. I said, first thing I look at is minus 1R. And what I'm looking at is, did you take any losses greater than 1R, and if so, why? This matters to me, especially intraday, because I use the 1R loss as my position sizing stop. And if I never take more than 1R loss, I have then demonstrated the ability to manage a risk that I could estimate. I estimated that there'd be about this much risk if it went against me, and I could get out of it without getting nailed. And if I never take more than a 1R loss, then I can say, based on the evidence, I have some ability to estimate the risk and then manage it productively. So that's the first thing I look for. If I take more than a 1R loss, then I start asking, why did you take more than a 1R loss? Did you misestimate? Did you not have, well, it was a swing trade and it closed at minus 0.95R and then it gapped against me 0.5R, so I took a 1.5R loss. And then I would say, well, how many times does your swing trade get to minus 0.95 and then turn around and go be the 2R winner? How many times does it do that? If it's never done that, why would you risk a 0.5 gap for a 0 probability of a follow-through? I mean, you know. So know your system, know your histogram, and know your risk. So the first thing I look at is minus 1. The next thing I look for is, what is my minimum reward to risk ratio? 2. Okay. So I'm going to go out to look at 2R. And I'm going to say, let me look at the space between minus 1 and plus 2. And what I'm looking for is some kind of distribution of results that looks like this. Because that's the middle of a normalish looking curve. The kind of data, the kind of performance that natural, robust processes generate in the world of any physical characteristic. Normal, robust, natural processes produce results like that clustered around some mean. And if that's 0, by inspection, I'm going to say that the average is probably right about here. And that makes it positive expectancy in the land between minus 1 and plus 2. So I'm looking for 2 things in here. Is this a normal looking curve? That tells me this wasn't maybe cherry picked. This looks like something that happens routinely. And if the land between minus 1 and plus 2R is positive expectancy, then I'm going to get paid for managing these trades properly according to my rules inside of that space. And then the third, so that's the second thing I'm looking for. And then the third and final thing I'm looking for is the possibility of greater than 2R wins. Doesn't have to be large, just has to be, did I ever get better than 2R wins in there? And to me, the fat right tail says, sometimes good things happen to bad people. And I was in a position where I was able to allow it to run. It wasn't me that predicted it, because all of these trades look the same when I take them. They all look the same when they're leaving the station. But sometimes it gets up to 2R, and instead of respecting my 2R estimate, it just keeps going. And so somewhere at 2R plus momentum, I got to be looking at adding a second position, because now the next higher time frame got convinced this thing is working, and that thing is really starting to go. And I want to be large when I'm right and small when I'm wrong. So those are the three things that I look for in the histogram. Now I say, now know your histogram. Well, first of all, I want that histogram because that aligns with how I think and feel and believe about trading processes, which are I see as craft work, and I'm looking for reliability and replicability just like a manufacturer would, and that's the mindset that I bring to it. And I use statistical process control to look for opportunities to improve the production of R. So all of my work is geared towards trying to make that reality occur. So you need to know where I'm coming from on them. Now, know your histogram. This is what I would say. If my, I'm going to find a blue one here. I want you to know what your average R is. Let's say on this one it is, because I have that now, maybe it's here. And let's call, not to scale, but let's say that that is 0.6 R. So maybe this first one was a better one. If my average over 1,000 trades, over 500 trades, over 200, whatever it is, if the average over the trade set is 0.6 R, and I'm in a trade, and I'm currently holding more than 0.6 R, and it starts to fail, in my opinion, you should not let an above average trade become a below average trade. You should, at worst, get your average trade. Every time that you get a trade that's better than your average, and you exit before it crosses back to this side, mathematically, your average trade just got a little bit better. Just a little bit better. You do that enough, and pretty soon your average trade goes up. The number of failed trades that you have going this way are less. Even a change of, if you took a 0.8 instead of a 0.6, over 10 trades, that's 2R. That's what you're trying to get each week. Also, I think you should know your average loss. If this is my position sizing loss, and my execution stop might be like in here, let's call it minus 0.5. If my average win is 0.6 is bigger than my average loss, I likes. And if I've got more on this side than that, I'm winning. I like winning more than I lose. And when I win, I like to win bigger than I lose on average. So if this thing starts going and it doesn't even get to my average loss, but then starts failing, I want to know what my average loss is. Because in my style of trading, it is almost unheard of for something to get all the way to minus 0.95 and then to be the one that goes out to 2R. Never. Never. So what I would rather do is, look, let me cut it short, and then if it gets down to the bottom and starts to resume, it's going to be another P1 or something, and I can get on board that one, and I don't